Oh wait. Well, it didn't do the intro.
Oh, it didn't?
Darn it.
Okay, well, that's fine. We're on.
Well,
Hey, guys, I guess
here,
we're on tonight.
I can do the intro. Here, hang on. Let's do the intro.
Okay, let's bring the intro in. You know what? I canceled. There we go.
That's an intro.
That is an intro. What I did was when I filmed my the live I did on my channel, just my live a couple of weeks ago or whenever it was, I cut that intro out and because it wasn't a Stream Team video, so that's what happened there.
There you go.
But we have a special program tonight. I'm pretty excited about this. Greg may make it in later on. He's out doing some I guess they're out doing some caroling or something as a family and as a church group or whatever. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but he may or may not make it in. If he is, it'll be kind of on the tail end of this thing. But we have a special guest tonight, Bracken from Barker's Bees and Honey out in Utah. Bracken's a good friend and a really good man. He's helped me out. If you've watched my videos of the honey harvest the last couple of years, I've tortured him he keeps coming back for more. That's what's crazy about it. But we're super excited to have you on, Bracken, tonight. And but what I think we'll start off, Brian, if we could, I'll kind of tell what's going on here, then we'll let you tell what's going on there, and then we'll just turn the time over to Bracken. I may do a little intro for Bracken, and then we'll let Bracken rock and roll. So anyway, here in Alabama, long story short, as Greg likes to say, except he's usually short story longs, but I checked my bees this past weekend. I put the formic in the wintertime, and since nobody's watching this, I can go ahead and spoiler alert as to how they're doing. The Formic Pro absolutely annihilated the mites in the hives I treated. There's a few that we're doing tests on I did not treat for test for Greg, but other than that, all the ones I checked that have been treated within threshold, I think the most mites I found was 5 in a wash, and most of them were 0s, 1s, 2s. And so that was exciting. Now, some of the colonies are a little bit week. I did have some dead outs, but I think they're on their way out anyway. But that I'll have a video coming up really soon talking about that experience. I went through a couple of colonies, one of my traditional videos, but you kind of see how things went. So it's pretty exciting. I was worried about it. You know, formic is one thing that down here in the South you worry a lot about, but when it's cool out like it has been the last few weeks, it was very effective. And it I've been trying Bracken, I've tried OAV, I've tried all kinds of things this year when there was brooding the colonies, and it didn't really knock them back like I wanted, but the formic absolutely annihilated the mites. So that's what's going on here. Brian, how about up in Northeast Ohio?
Well, I have not touched the bees since last time we spoke. So I was just watching the news yesterday, and they said that every single day so far, so this would have been up to yesterday, so up to the 16th of December, we have been 5 to 10 degrees below our normal temperatures every day of the month so far. So they said we're like on pace for, like in the top 10 or so coldest Decembers. Now that kind of flipped. Today we got up to like 43. Tomorrow we're supposed to get up to, I think, 53 about 3 p.m. So I plan on being in my apiary 3 p.m. tomorrow, and I'm just going to check fondant. So I'm going to go through clean bottom boards, check the fondant. So tomorrow will be kind of like my tell all for what's going on so far. So
Good
up to
deal.
this point right now, though, I have nothing for you.
Good deal. Well, since Bracken's the main point of emphasis tonight, well, I guess we'll go ahead and move in that direction. But I'd like to kind of, first of all, introduce Bracken a little bit. What was, I guess, Bracken a couple of years ago, give or take, maybe a little, well, let's see, when was it? Yeah, probably right around a couple of years ago.
2 years ago.
2 or 2.5 years ago. I was out in Utah and visiting family out there. I can't remember what time of the year it was. I was around Thanksgiving time, maybe it was, but
I think it was.
we went out. I kind of put a Facebook post out, or I can't remember where I even put the post out, probably on Facebook, and just anybody in Utah, hey, you want to get together and have lunch somewhere, and had a pretty good little turnout. We had Glade was there, and Ian Casper, and just some different folks showed up for that. But Bracken reached out to me and said, "Man, I'd love to come, but I'm busy. I can't make it down there." So, but then Bracken says, "I have a YouTube channel. Maybe you could check it out sometime." So I did, and I actually really liked it. And I didn't know much about Bracken, but I watched, I think one of his first videos you did, Bracken, was one where he talked about really how his life has turned around, and bees have a big part of that. And since then, Bracken and I have become pretty close friends. He's out Brigham City, Utah area, up north of Salt Lake out there. And my wife is from Utah, and I went to BYU, as many of you know. And but Bracken has grown from very few, if no bees, up to, he's a strong sideliner and hoping to grow even more. And it's just really expanding for him. Got a beautiful wife, a beautiful family, and a beautiful life. I think it seems like Bracken, things are really going well for you now. But we did a video, I think, about not like a year and a half, maybe. I don't remember when it was, but it was a video. It was called
It's probably been a year and a half.
Spring, yeah, year and a half, 1.75 years. But it was about basically how the bees saved Bracken's life, or played a major part in that. And that was a great. I noticed something's different, but now I notice the beard's gone. That's what it is. He's so clean cut, man. You just get rid of the mustache, you could go back to being a
This is the first time
missionary.
I've seen my chin since I got out of the army, so it's
You
weird.
didn't have to shave to
I
be on the
actually got
stream
2 of
team.
them.
That's not a requirement to be on. Look at Brian over there to be on the stream team. But anyway, so Bracken came down and helped me harvest honey 2 summers ago, and then brought a couple of other Utah buddies with him this past summer. So really been a great friendship. I've been out to his place. If you saw the thumbnail for this video, that was when I was out there visiting his place, and just a wonderful, wonderful story. So without further ado, Bracken, if you could take a few minutes and just kind of talk about your story a little bit, and how, kind of just whatever you want to share with us about your story, and kind of how the bees have had a major impact on your life, and kind of where you're at in your situation. And then we'll kind of go back and forth on some questions, and we'll just carry this thing through and see how it rolls.
Yeah, sounds good. So, where to start? Most of you have maybe you've heard some of my story about the bees and how important they've become to me in this life. I do have everything going right now for me. Some people have been telling me I've been living the dream. I got beautiful wife. I've got kids. I just built a house. I run a farm, and a lot of people see all the good stuff that I've come across the last little while, but a lot of people don't realize what I went through to get to where I'm at, and it wasn't a very pretty journey. I'll get kind of vulnerable on here and share it because I don't think my message is unique. I don't think my story is unique. I think there's a lot of people that have very similar stories to me, and sometimes it's hard to tell them. It's easy to brag about the good things we have in life, but it's hard to talk about the things that we screwed up, the mistakes we've made, and the trials and the errors. Nobody sees that on social media. Nobody sees the hard times. Nobody sees the hard, the real tough times don't make it on social media. I would dare say 90% of what you see on there is buttered up, to be pretty good. And I show a lot of my good, but I got a lot of skeletons in my closet. I got a lot of history, but I wouldn't trade my history and my story for anything because it has given me what I have now. I don't want to get emotional on this, but it might happen. So back, let's see, where do you want me to start, Bruce? What part of my story you want me to start here?
Just whatever. I mean, I think we got about probably what, Brian, 20, 30 minutes or longer, whatever you want to take. Just kind of, maybe back in high school, kind of tell about your upbringing. I know you were raised on that farm. Your dad worked on the farm, and just whatever you feel like inspired to share with us, man. I mean, obviously it's a beekeeping chat, but bees are a major part of your story. So absolutely.
So in high school, I wasn't a very good high school student. I didn't go to school a lot. I slept a lot. But at the end of high school, I chose to go on an LDS mission, and I actually lived over in New England. I served in New Hampshire, or not. My mission was New Hampshire, but I didn't actually serve there. I served in Vermont, Maine, and Massachusetts. I kind of was raised in Utah has a very religious bubble, and I respect the religion, and I'll maybe talk about that a little bit. But I went on a mission. I realized that there's a lot of people out there in this world that are good people that don't necessarily have the same beliefs as me, and that's okay. I came home. I wanted to serve in the military, so I joined the Army. I signed an 8-year contract. It was 6 years, 6 years on and 2 years inactive. And I started drinking. I started drinking a little bit in high school, but I really started drinking in the military. That's what you did. When you got downtime, you'd go and drink. And I was married by the time I joined the military. I left for boot camp on my first year anniversary. Wife wasn't too happy about that, but came home and it changed me. I was a different person, and it really opened my eyes up to a different part of the world that I'd never really partaken of or been a part of. And I started getting into, tattoos, and not that any of this is bad, because it's not, but I went down started down the wrong road, and I went through some emotional roller coasters. I got a divorce because of the choices I was making in my life. She wanted to live a little bit more of a religious life, and I wanted to be a little bit more wild and off the rails. So we ended it, and then I got married again, and we had a little girl together, Bryn, with my second wife. And after that, when I got divorced, I really started to drink, and I really started to solve my problems with alcohol. I was trying to escape the reality of the mess that I was in. I was ashamed of who I was. I was disappointed in who I was. I was embarrassed. Every time I was around my father or my family, I felt like I was a disappointment or a letdown. And I always thought that everybody else was the problem and I was fine. You know, I kind of would blame everybody around me for my mistakes, and I kind of hated the world. I hated everybody. And I had a moment. Let me go back. About 2013, my dad and I got our first bees. We got some bees. We decided that the farm wasn't a farm unless we had some beehives. So I think we bought 2 packages, and we, went down to the river, actually on the riverbend yard, or where I have them up there by the river. That's exactly where we put the bees the first time. We didn't know what we were doing, like everybody, and we had them for a couple of years, and I loved it. I couldn't financially afford to keep doing it. We lost the bees. They died. My dad didn't want to continue in it, which was fine. He was the one kind of financing it anyways. So took a break. After my second divorce, like I said, I really fell off the rails, and I lost, some contact with my daughter, and she was living in Oregon, and I just wasn't in a good spot. And I got married again. Well, I met this other lady, which is my wife, Laura, now. And bless her heart for what she's put up with me, because it's hard being married to a beekeeper, and it's hard to be married to an alcoholic beekeeper. She's got to deal with both sides there. I got bees. I decided when I was going to try to quit drinking, after I had decided that I needed to change my life, because like I said, I went back. I thought everybody else was the problem. Well, I soon realized that I was the problem. I was the one causing the heartaches. I was the one that was insecure about my problems. I was the one that was feeling uncomfortable. My dad and my family loved me the whole time. Everybody that cared for me loved me the whole time. It didn't matter what I was doing, they loved me. But I was on that side where I was the victim. I had that victim mentality. And a pretty big event kind of got me thinking. It was a car wreck that I went on as a first responder, and it involved some alcohol and some kids, and we life-flighted 3 people that night to the hospitals, and 2 of them died. One was dead on scene, and it kind of woke me up a little bit, because I realized what kind of an example I was setting for my kids. And I didn't want my kids to be the ones out on that road that was drinking, and I knew I needed to find something different. So I told my wife that I was going to quit drinking, and started going down that road, and went through the physical withdrawals and was sick as sick. And I mean, I was a functioning alcoholic. I had a job. I was a functioning I wasn't the bum in the street that was passed out all the time. But I would, take shots before work and anywhere I could to get it, just to keep that edge of not feeling. I just didn't want to feel anything. I didn't want to feel any of my problems. And so all that led up to, I decided I was going to get back into bees. So I told my wife, and she was like, okay, whatever, that's good. And I took my life 180'd almost from that moment on. I took all that addiction and all that energy that I had towards that strong love for alcohol, and I flipped it and I changed it, and I dove into bees. And they did those, between my wife and my kids, those bees saved my life. I don't think I would be where I don't know where I'd be. I can look back and pretend I would know, but I don't know. I don't know where I'd be if I hadn't got back into the bugs. And this is what happened. I noticed when I was in the bees. In the military, they teach us to be super hyper alert. We're always watching everything. You're always looking. The way I put it, I'm always looking for the bad guy, or I'm always looking for the general in the room, so I can, do the proper thing and do the right thing. Always on alert. When I'm in the bee yard, that goes away. And it's anybody who has been in a bee yard and has held a frame and looked at it, there's something about them. They're not just bugs in a box. They're connected to something that's so much more powerful and so much more bigger than me, so much more divine. And one of my biggest things leaving the military was the friendships that I lost, or that I was, I still keep in contact with some, but there was a brotherhood there. And anybody that's been in, I know every trade or everywhere has a brotherhood, like being a lineman, I'm my brother's keeper is a lineman. I watch his back. But military brotherhood is so much different. Didn't matter who it was, you loved that person. And sure, there was some, weirdos and crazy people that joined the military, but you were all there for one purpose, to serve the country. And beekeeping, this community, has helped me fill that void. And I was proud to put on the uniform. I was proud to be part of something that was bigger. And then when I got out and when I was drinking, I kind of lost that. I lost that. Where do I belong? And I found the bees, and here I am now. I got friends all over the, United States, and it humbles me to think of where I was to where I'm at now. And I owe a lot of it to Bruce. He got me out there and opened my eyes to a whole different perspective of miserable beekeeping in that Alabama heat, and reminds me of the boot camp and military all over again. Terrible, but I loved it. I love it. And the bees have become something that is mine. It's the only thing that I've done in my life, except maybe the military, and that's probably why I care about it so much. That was my choice and my doing. I didn't do it for anybody else. I didn't do it for my parents. I didn't do it for my wife. I did it for me. And those bees, they saved my life. That's my story. I was where I was at, and I'm not giving 100% credit to bees, but I'm giving 100% credit to God. And I believe 100% that was his way of getting me back to where I needed to be. It was the road I needed to take. So these bees aren't just a business to me. This might sound well, I won't. I'm not going to share that. That's a little too personal. But I love the bees, and I don't plan on going anywhere. I plan on doing good with them. I want to grow them. I want to make something, of the bees. Yeah. What questions you guys got? What do you?
Well, one thing that I've noticed, and Bracken and I are driving down the road a couple summers ago. I remember driving back from Rusty's house, and we pulled by the side of the road. It was pitch black, dark, and the bugs were chirping in the woods. And I said, hear that? Because down here in the summertime is loud. I mean, we got all kinds of bugs out there in the woods doing their thing, and just having some really good conversations, just one-on-one with Bracken. And, with Bracken, what you see is what you get, and those are the type of people I love the most, people who are not fake. I don't like fake people, and I hope I'm not fake. I think we all probably are a little bit fake on occasion. Occasionally, we try to maybe gloss over some things, but with Bracken, when you watch his channel, it's just what you see is what you get. I mean, he is who he is, and I much prefer people like that give you a look into who they really are than those that are fake and everything's polished and perfect all the time. And so Bracken, we really appreciate that story, man. We did a similar video when we did it a while back, but I think your story has developed quite a bit since then. And I met Bracken's family. His wife and little girl went to eat lunch with us one day when I was in Utah that day, and man, just such a absolutely cool story. And Bracken, I think you're right, and it's the same with, I think Brian would agree that the Lord has put He puts people in our lives at certain times, and when you were going down that bad path, you just weren't ready, for a while, and when the time came, He put your wife in your life, and He put these bees back in your life, and he knows the plan, he knows what's going on, and he knows when it's best to approach us. And sometimes, tell me what you think about this. And you mentioned early in your discussion there in your story that even though you had some really hard times and went down some bad paths, you wouldn't trade it. Why is that, do you think? What was the advantage to going through that for you now? How can you use that to make yourself stronger and help other people now, do you think?
Oh, I think the biggest thing is just knowing that, like, I don't know, everybody has battles, everybody has struggles, and it's made me treat people different, because a lot of people didn't know what I was going through. I mean, they could see it, they could smell the alcohol in my breath, but they couldn't. I didn't feel like they knew, and I want to help. Well, I don't know. I don't know.
I think sometimes, I've been in some positions like at church and some different things where I've had the opportunity to meet people and talk to people who are going through hard times. And, you know, there are things that you've been through that I have no clue about. So if I try to help someone that's been through that, I can't be near as effective at it as someone like you. You know what I mean? Same thing with the bees. We've all been through certain things. We've seen certain things, and that's why it's important to try to mentor others, because a new beekeeper hasn't been through it or seen it. And we have. And so in that case, you have a in a sense, I think, and I think you feel it's a responsibility to help others who are going through some of those same things now. And once again, I think it also took away, it just took away that web of judgment that people have sometimes. You know what I mean? I think that's so important, because so often you know, I know sometimes it's easy to kind of get on your high horse a little bit and think, well, I would never do that. Or, why do those people do this? Or why can't they just do this or not do that? And, you know, everyone has their own struggles. Even those who say those kind of things are going through struggles in their own way. And sometimes pride can be as much more of a struggle than people who are kind of at rock bottom in some ways. And so we've all got our own mountain to climb and obstacles to overcome. And if we could just all realize that, that's one reason I think it's so cool that you're on here tonight, because if we could all just realize that everybody is going through something, then we could love each other more and help each other out more. And it applies. Beekeeping has so many life parallels. I mean, because, you just look at just a year in beekeeping, all the challenges, all the struggles, all the trials that you have. You see these bees fighting for their life, the ones that are struggling sometimes, and you get frustrated, discouraged, you get burned out, and then you have the elation of cracking open a hive that's looking good, and in the springtime and the summer when they're bringing in that honey, and it's just the elation of that, and it can go from top to bottom. You test for mites, and you got 30 mites in the wash, and it freaks you out. You know what I mean? And so many parallels, I think so. But
that's why we're here. We're on this life to overcome struggles, and I don't think life is meant to be easy. It's not supposed to be rainbows and butterflies. My life sure hasn't been rainbows and butterflies, but
yeah.
it's okay to struggle. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to admit it. It's okay we're human. That's what
right.
we do. We're here to make mistakes. It's not my place to judge. I don't that is a big thing, because I felt judged everywhere I went, and I realized that I wasn't judged. I was loved. Maybe some people here and there might have been like, yeah, I don't want anything, I'm not getting involved with him, and that's fine. But we need to be, as a human race, we need to love each other no matter what the background is. It doesn't matter. I mean, that's how I don't know. Let's relate it to a bee colony. You think a worker bee is mad at another worker bee because maybe their wings are different or something? I don't know. I don't think so. They all work together. They have one thing in mind, and that's, it doesn't matter if it's a drone or a worker bee or whatever. They all have a purpose. We all have a purpose.
Yeah.
And what it is, I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out mine. But
Brian, what are your thoughts? Yeah, Brian, what are your thoughts?
I tell people that same exact thing all the time when I'm out at the markets and people, if it's kind of a slower moment and I can actually have a conversation with whoever's at the table, I tell them that's one of the things that I always say is I'll explain how colonies work and they just all work together. And I'll tell people that, if we would work together like what bees do, the world would be a lot better place. It would.
Yeah.
There's a Bracken, I think of your story, and I've had my time in my life too, but my brother has a little plaque in his house, and it says something, I'm paraphrasing, I know I'll mess it up, but it says something like, I may not have taken the best path, but I ended up exactly where I needed to be. And it's something like that because if you figure everything that you've experienced, Bracken, that's defined who you are right now. So if you remove any of those little pieces of the puzzle, then who you are right now, you wouldn't be that same person. So we don't understand, when you're going through struggles, when you're going through those tough times in life, we don't understand it, and we could look up and ask why, but how you are right now, I mean, it's defined you, and you're stronger. 100%, you're a stronger person.
Yeah, for sure.
That's
I think that's the real reason, and Bracken hit on this a little bit, why we're here on this earth is to become more, to overcome, to learn to serve and love each other, to learn to be, and being a Christian, a member, and believing in Jesus Christ, I think it's important for that we're trying to become more like him. And what did he do? He went down to the people in the lowest of the low situations, the blind, the sick, the ill, the people with leprosy, the just all over, just everywhere where he wasn't supposed to go. That's where he went, and that's kind of what we need to do too. And it's hard. DC says, my mom calls it knocking the rough edges off, and that's true. That is so true. We're all trying to. I think the Lord's trying to refine us. He's trying to refine us. We start off as this rough piece of stone, and as we roll down the hill, and as we hit different bumps and obstacles, it knocks those patches off. And it doesn't just mean there can be a really really nice looking person that's beautiful, that has all the things in the world, that just looks like the perfect person out there that everyone looks up to, but they have their own issues. Their issue might be pride or something like that they have to overcome. And many of those people are having a lot of the same problems that Bracken was talking about and other things. So everybody's got things they're dealing with. But so that's awesome, Bracken. We appreciate you sharing that story. And I do know that the friendship that we've developed and forged has been really good. It was so good having you here the last couple of summers, and I hope you'll come back this next summer for the harvest. You're going to get so big with your operation, I don't know, you might not be able to support the time, but it was great having you.
Maybe I'll have you come out to
help me.
I
would love to. I would love to, man, because you harvest a little bit laid in the season, so we could do that. We could definitely do that because you do harvest later in the season, and so I'd love to do that. It'd be fun. But it was fun having you, Glade, and Jed all come from Utah, plus all the other wonderful local people. Lisa's in here. She was there, and other folks that have come and helped. And it just really saved my tail, honestly. Rusty and I really appreciate everyone that came and helped us with that harvest. It was incredible. But
one of these days I'll get down there when Bruce does that.
Yeah, I'd love you and Greg both. That'll be a blast. But I know right then, June is like the pinnacle of bee season for most people. And so, like you guys up there are still making splits and things like that in June. The honey's a little bit later, but down here that June harvest is the end. It's the end of the honey, and then we move on into other stages. But so I appreciate your story, Bracken. The title tonight was Overcoming Adversity in Beekeeping and in Life. Tell us a little bit. We've talked about some of your life story. Tell us a little bit about some of the adversity you faced in your actual beekeeping career, your beekeeping status. I know you actually got going here about 3 or 4 years ago. with the bees serious and for real. So what have been some of your obstacles, and how have you overcome some of those things to get to where you're at today?
One of my biggest obstacles was the second time I sent my bees to California. I lost communication with the guy who had took them, and that's a whole different story. But I learned real quick that I needed to, not that it's bad to ask for help and have people help you, because it is, but I decided I was going to rely on myself. That's why I've been taking my bees, on my own truck and trailer and stuff. But as far as patience, that's been my biggest thing that I've learned with beekeeping. I've had a lot of where I've tried some queens, or I make splits too early or too late, and I don't do it. I just get impatient. As far as like actual,
Here's a good one.
I have all the struggles, but yeah, that's the biggest one. I don't wear black fuzzy slippers. Well, they were socks and monocle. Yeah. Anyways, but I don't know. I've lost colonies. I've had high mites, but to me, it hasn't ever. I don't look at it as an obstacle. It's just farming. It's just part of agriculture. When your crop dies or when you don't get a good harvest, it is what it is. So I guess I could say I've had all the same, obstacles everybody else has, but to me, they're just part of the package. I mean,
yeah, I agree.
I don't know how to explain it. I like to tell people I don't have problems with mine, because what I have with mine is the same thing everybody else has. I just have to, we all fumble the football. It's just how we got to recover it. And I don't know, Bruce, I don't know how to answer.
Well, that was a good answer. And and one thing that all of us in our life experience, we learn how to deal with trials. And back when I was a new beekeeper, I would be so worried about every little thing that happened. I would get pretty frustrated and discouraged at times. But I've learned now that, like I just did that this weekend. I was out looking at my bees and had a couple of weak ones, and I'm not even sure there's a queen in there right now. With the combination of Formant Pro and some cold weather, they may have just brooded back. There may have been a queen in there, but one of them I was pretty sure was queenless. And so I just stacked one on top of the other one and just rolled on. If they make it, fine. If not, fine. They're probably both on their way out individually, so why not just put them on top of each other and see what happens? And I would have never done that before. I would have milked them and nursed them along and tried to keep them alive until the bitter end. And I still tend to do that a little bit, but those are the type of things that you just learn how to deal with situations. And I think your background in farming too, Bracken, you just realize in farming, you have good years and bad years. And so you had a little bit of a stronger background in that kind of thing. So you learned at a very young age how to roll with agricultural difficulties, I'm sure.
Yep. Sick bees don't make you honey or money, and it'll work or it won't. I mean, you're gonna have it's just like life. You're gonna have failures. You're gonna have mites. You're gonna have wax moth. You're gonna have you just got to figure out how to get over it. And that's what's fun to me, is solving those. Not saying that I like to lose my hives and all my nice comb to wax moth, but I definitely treat it different now, and I do different things, and I learned from it, and I wouldn't have learned if it didn't happen. So
that's right.
That stuff has to happen to get better. I bet if Bob Benny or Ian Stepler was on here, I bet the losses and the things that they've gone through are 10 times what we, as far as losing.
Oh, sure. Well, how about Ian Stepler with the big flood he had a few years ago? And then same thing with Jose, the California beekeeper, had beehives. Actually, he was pulling out of a river as it was flowing through a stream that was expanding.
Yes.
So things like that,
I haven't had anything like that. So
yeah, for sure.
I saw this one. There was a paragraph it was a quote from Michael Jordan, and it started out, and he said, everyone likes to focus on the championships. And then he said, but through my career, I've missed this. I've done this. I've missed, like, he had all the free throws he missed, all the shots he missed, every like failure. And he said, all of the failures far outweigh all of my successful moments. And there was this big paragraph that he just summarized all this stuff. And it's like, yeah, I mean, yeah, we all fail, I've had my moments, a couple years ago, I didn't have any bees left alive, but it's how we learn.
Absolutely. I know that and this is kind of going into another angle, but speaking of sports, any sports team, kind of like you said, Brian, they spend an entire year, like in football, college football, they spend an entire season, or high school football, entire season for 10 or, college is 12 games, high school is like 10 games usually. But they work out all season long, and they may get injured. They may have soreness, muscle aches, just may, roll an ankle, all to have those 10 opportunities, And so, like you say, I think the time you spend under the lights is, to me, it kind of outweighs all the work you put in, because it's what you really worked for all year. And, but you do have that moment to shine. And I think it's that way with beekeeping, with life, period. The mundane stuff, the boring stuff, like right now, with the bees, it's like, oh, I got to get out my bee yards and clean up the dead outs that are sitting around. I got to get out there and, just throw some fondant on them. And this, to me, that's the just stuff I just don't want. Like, especially one of my least favorite things to do in beekeeping. Some people they don't enjoy harvesting the honey because it's so much work, and they just don't like, they would much prefer just raise bees and not. But the thing I probably dislike the most about beekeeping is cleaning up dead outs and cleaning up equipment. And just, I hate it. That's why it's still sitting out there. It should have been cleaned up 2 months ago, probably. But I've got to get that done, because now here in Alabama, like within a month, we're going to kind of be hitting the stride a little bit, starting to have some beekeeping season going on. So I better get busy with that. But
I don't even want to hear
anyway, what I'd like to do, if and we have another guest come on here in a minute, just for a few minutes, but I would like to, anyone that has any questions for any of us, Bracken or Brian or me, or just the group of us, go ahead and put some comments in the comment section here if you'd have any questions for us. One thing, Bracken is out west. He's in Utah. And so it is a little different out there. Obviously, he's in a desert area. Utah is mostly a desert area. They do get some rain and moisture, but it's real dry out there and hot in the summertime. And any questions you might have for him, I'm sure he'd love to answer them for you. And it always helps if you put questions in all caps, then we can see them better and star them. And we'll do our best to try and get those questions answered. We're going to go for a while still. We're not anywhere near the end quite yet, but I just wanted to let you know. I just wanted to kind of get Bracken's story and talk about that a little bit, and some of that adversity and how he overcomes that. Because, Brian and Bracken as well, here on the stream team, every year we have that chat, like in late August, early September, or sometime around the fall, where we're just like, my gosh, I'm so burnt out. How do you overcome the burnout? So that's a great question for Bracken. Bracken, how do you overcome burnout when you have those moments where you're kind of burnt out on your bees or farming or anything else? What do you do to overcome that?
Go sit with my bees.
Yeah.
No, it's, I have to, my wife would agree. Another problem I have is working. I have to detach myself from what I'm doing. I have to, put the bees away, put the farm away, go in, play with my kids, not have that. I have to go shoot guns sometimes, I do make time for myself, not as much as I used to. And actually it's caused, some issues here in the last month or two. And even my wife and I still go to a therapist. I still talk to a counselor. I still have a AA sponsor. And, it's important to remember to do things for you too. I have to do things to detach from the bees. I have to put them away, and I have to put, so yeah.
That's true. Sometimes, you got to just pull away. And for me, it's real difficult to do that. You almost sometimes have to leave, almost go somewhere for some people to get away from it. Yeah, I just can't because they're out there. They're out there. Like when I'm here at my house or when I'm here in town, I'm always thinking about them, what I need to do. Even if I'm not doing anything, I'm thinking about them. But if I'm, away from here, which we don't get away much, but if I'm away from here, obviously I can't go check on them. I can't worry too much about them because there's nothing I can do about it. So, anyway, let's go ahead and bring in, we have some more, I have another guest in here. We have Tom and Melissa from Bee Honeybees. They wanted to join us for a few minutes. What's up, fellas? What's up, y'all?
Doing well.
Doing good?
Yes, sir.
What are you guys up to up there in Missouri?
Right now, just listening to a great testimony, honestly.
Yeah, Bracken's a great guy.
Yeah. I honestly just got to say, I mean, I really appreciate you talking about that, Bracken. I think it takes a lot to be able to delve into that. And I think that you probably don't realize the amount of people that you're going to help by talking about that, everybody may not share that same experience that you have, but there could be somebody out there struggling right now, and you never know the life you could have changed by that. So I think it really takes a lot to step up and say that. So appreciate you, man.
Thanks.
Awesome.
I'll let Melissa kind of talk a little bit about what we're going to be doing here. But I guess basically as an introduction, in the idea of giving and in the idea of helping to serve those who have served us in the military. That's kind of where this next part comes in at here with the Hives for Heroes. Pull up that flyer. There you go.
Oh, yeah, they got it pulled up already. It's like I wasn't prepared, didn't have that pulled up, so I guess Brian's got me covered.
You're not working with an amateur.
Philip and Melissa were the one that did a lot of this, so I'm going to let Melissa explain what this is all about because this is her hard work. So
it's actually Philip Morris with RTX Honeybees. He's in Texas. 3 years ago, he started this raffle with just a gift basket. He was raffling off just to raise money to donate to Hives for Heroes. And some of the other people in the No Life Beekeepers group, which is just a bunch of people that listen to all these YouTube chats throughout the week, right? It's not an official group, it's not a foundation or charity or anything like that. Anyway, when they heard that he was doing this, they also wanted to make gift baskets to raffle off and add to what he was giving. So it just kind of grew from there. Last year, I think we had about the same amount of raffle items that we have this year, and we were able to raise about $2,200 for Hives for Heroes and donate that to them at Nabi last year. And what this is most of these items being donated are just individuals who watch these chats all week long. There is like 21st Bee, Michael May. How do you say his last name? Mayher. I don't know. Anyway, 21st Bee, he does have a couple donations on there. But most of these items are being donated by individuals that just want to support Hives for Heroes and that watch these live chats all throughout the week. So I don't know if Brian, you want to zoom in on things or you just want me to talk about them. So what we've done is Philip had contacted Hives for Heroes, and they have their own site that they use called Give Butter. That is, it's kind of like, it's just a site that you can give donations to, and Give Butter, I guess, doesn't actually take a portion of what you're donating to them. So anyway, they go through this site called Give Butter. So they were actually able, so nobody has to handle any money. Your contribution is going directly to Hives for Heroes. It's not going to myself. It's not going to Philip, and then we're turning that money over. It's going directly to Hives for Heroes. Sorry. But anyway, I just want to explain how the raffle works. And Philip can correct me. He's in the chat. I think you can purchase tickets through midnight on Friday through that Give Butter site. And actually, I don't know if you can pull the link and post that, or you want me to send you the link to post that?
I'll post it.
Okay. But yeah, so you can purchase tickets through, I think, Friday at midnight. And then the raffle is actually going to happen live on Joey Rawls' channel on Saturday at 7 p.m. Central. And you can buy as many tickets as you want. You're only eligible to win one prize. So if your name gets picked for multiple prizes, you'll get to pick which prize that you want over the other. Also, several of the items are Nabi pickup items only. However, if you win one of those items, you will be given the option to pay to arrange shipping for that item, or you can pick one of the items that are available to be shipped at no charge to you. And the way that we do that is, like I said, each item is being donated by individuals. So when you win, you'll be put in contact with that individual that you won that item from, and you'll arrange pickup with them. So I think I've got that all explained. If anybody has any questions, just post them in the chat and I'll do my best to answer. I'm sorry,
go ahead. No, you go ahead. So I guess in review, if I wanted to buy a ticket or some tickets, I would need to go through that website.
Correct.
And then it would be explained. So you don't bid on an item, you're just buying tickets.
Correct. You're just buying raffle tickets.
Okay.
Now Philip has offered, because there are some people that don't like doing electronic payments. If you are one of those people, he will accept a check, make it out to Hives for Heroes, and you would mail it to Philip Morris. You would have to contact him at his email right there, that pmorris81@proton.me. And so get in contact with Philip if you're somebody who doesn't like doing electronic payment methods, and he will take checks and enter you into the raffle and all that good stuff. So I'll go ahead and explain some of the items we've got going on now. So the first item is donated by Michael Maher, however you say his name. I go back and forth with him, with 21st Bees. It's a dog bed, and they actually make this in 3 different sizes. The most expensive one is like $97 value, and you can choose which size bed you want. The cover there is like a bee pattern. You can't really tell on that picture. If you zoom in on it more, I don't know if you can see the pattern better or not.
You can go to 21st Bee, and you can see them on his website there as well.
Yeah, and I think he actually just posted something on Facebook about those also.
He did.
So the next item is donated by Jen and Brian Zavada with Flower Street Farms. They're out of Colorado. It is a Defender hive, and I'll let Tom talk to you about that a little bit.
Well, I'll just try to be brief on it so we can speed this up. But so the Defender hive is mainly a queen rearing hive made by Apame. It's 10 frame, but it actually can also, you can put 10 frames in if you want to utilize it as such, or you can put a divider down the middle and use it for, I think it's 4 and 4 frames. Or what you can do is, ideally how it's set up is on the back of that looks the same as the front, where it actually has, you see the little round holes in the front corners on the far right and far to the left. Those are little openings that you can use for queen mating, and it has the same on the opposite side. So you can actually use Michael Maher with 21st Bees half frames, which was basically like a mating nuke frame is what it is. So it's a half frame, and it has 4 different quadrants inside that. So you can make queens through each one of those quadrants. So there's there's some versatility with it. You can probably find, I think you can probably find more on Apame's website about it. So if you need to know more about it, you can go there.
So I'm going to answer this question real quick. So the way Philip did it last year is we started with item number 1, and he drew a name for item number 1. So if your name got drawn for item number 1, that's the item that you won. That's how we did it last year. If you,
yes,
so you would kind of, you don't have to watch to win, but if you want to switch out something that you won because of the shipping issue, you would have to be live to win that. Yeah. Or to change that, to let us know.
I thought everything's supposed to be live.
So number 3 is an Anel hive, and that's being donated by Tom and myself with Via Honeybees. And I'll let Tom tell you about that again.
So we're actually getting that from Shenandoah Bee Supply. He will be there present at the North American Honeybee Expo with a booth. So as you can see right there, it's set up as a solid bottom board, one deep, a medium, and then a insulated cover. Now, as far as that goes, Melissa and I have covered the cost of that setup. Now, he said that if you want to choose, if you're a person that doesn't want to run a single deep and a single medium, but you want to run two deeps, you can absolutely do that. Or if you run all mediums, you can do two mediums. So there's some versatility. I think there's two different colors. I forget. I think it was yellow
and white.
And white you had to choose from. And also if you are someone who says, hey, that's great, I love that, but I want to add to it, you can pay the additional cost while you're at Nobby, because this will be a Nobby pickup only, and add to that. So if you want to add to make it the larger one that has multiple boxes, you can definitely do that there. So, but Melissa and I are covering the setup that you see here.
It comes with infinity frames too.
Yes, it actually does come with the infinity frames too, the 21st Bee infinity frames. So it's basically a hive ready to go. So if you want two deeps and two deeps full of frames, that's what you get with this setup here. If you want one deep, one medium with frames, absolutely.
So the next item is donated by Philip Morris with RTX Honeybees. It is a 4x4 swarm trap. And if you scan his QR code there, he has a YouTube video explaining how it's used. He built that himself. And on the other side of this is all the values of these items also. So this item is a value of $150. Ours was a value of $280. Brian's, I think, was $350. So all the item values are over there.
Where can they find this sheet if they want to view it on the Facebook?
So it's on that Give Butter. If you follow that Give Butter link, it's on there. It's also on the Hives for Heroes group page, I believe. And it's on the No Life Beekeepers Facebook page. So the next item, number 5, is a gallon jug of Type Bond 3 donated by Mark Zenner, and he's out of Georgia, I believe. It's a $38 value. The next two items are frame crackers. If you don't know what a frame cracker it is, it's when you're harvesting your honey and you bring your super in, you can slam that down on the frame cracker and it pushes your frames up out of your super. So JW is donating 2 of those, one for an 8 frame and one for a 10 frame. He values those at $35 a piece. The next item, number 8, 9, and 10, are 3 separate lots of fondant made by Matt Ramsbottom with Sandy Valley Honey Company. Many of us have used this, including ourselves and Mike Berry. Joey, I think, used some. Tested it out last year. It works great. Mm-hmm. He does a really great job with this fondant. Each lot is 25 pounds, so each lot is worth $50. So he's donating those. 11 and 12 are 2 separate sets of infinity frames. I think each set is 10 frames, and you can pick the cell size that you want, made by 21st Bee. Each set is valued at $58. Number 13 is a gift basket by Grammy. I can't remember the whole name of her thing, but she's got a bunch of the descriptions over there. There's some bunch of different types of hot honeys. There's some body butter lotion. There's several different honeys. There's some creamed honeys in there, dippers, all kinds of stuff. It's a $150 value basket. So items 1 through 13 are all Nobby only pickups. Again, if you want to elect to pay for shipping, you can do that. Number 14 is donated by Clay Bunner, and it is, or sorry, not Clay Bunner, James Knoll, and with J&D Honey, and he's got several honey items, some dippers, some straws, things like that. It's in the description on the other side. I think that was, I don't remember how much that one was, Brian. Sorry.
$60.
$60, yeah. Number 15 is a $100 Hilco gift card donated by Philip Kent, which everybody loves, getting some stuff from Hilco. Number 16 and 17 are a set of coasters made by Tim and Hannah with Gunline Bees. Those are not the coasters you're getting. We just didn't have the pictures of the ones they were donating at the time. The ones they're donating are red, white, and blue, Hives for Hero themed. Mm-hmm. And they're donating 2 separate sets of coasters. Each are valued at $30 a piece, I believe. Next, item 18 is a grafting station donated by Hope Sadler, and he valued that at $50. I'm going to let Tom tell you about these next two items. 19 and 20 are bucket alarms by JL Apiaries. I will say, if you're harvesting honey, these things are worth the money. We use them this year, and they really are great little tools to have in your honey house. So.
Yeah, they're basically just audible alarms that when you put inside of a bucket, it's got the little white thumb screws at the top. You set down in your container or bucket, clamp them down, and what happens is that these are ambidextrous, so you can have either a 3 1/4 or 6 1/4 based upon. You can see the two little floats that are in there with the little red tab above it. It's a little plastic keeper. So if you want to fill up your container within 6 1/4 inches of the top, you would pull the red one out at the bottom. When that float actually floats up a little bit, it sends off a very, very loud, ear-piercing, high-pitched, audible sound. If you want to do it within 3 1/4, you would leave the bottom one in and pull the top one. And then the second one, number 20, is much of the same, just in different size increments, basically.
But those are great. Like, you can hear those over music playing while you're extracting. Ask us how we know. Number 21 is donated by Clay Bunner, and it is Christmas tree candles, 3 different sizes, a bottle of honey, and he's also adding in some more candles to that. He just didn't have them prepared when he took the photograph yet. But as that sets right there, I think it's a $49 value, but it'll be worth more once he adds the other candles. Mm-hmm. So that's my raffle spiel. If anybody has any questions, let me know.
So just buy the tickets that you need to by Friday night at midnight. They're going to cut it off at that. All 100% of these proceeds, again, like I said, through the Give Butter site, go straight to Hives for Heroes. So these are helping veterans and first responders. So that's exactly where your money goes to. So go America.
Mm-hmm. And there's my email and Philip's if anybody has any questions after the fact.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. And hopefully that'll help get some more donations coming your way for Hives for Heroes. It is a very worthy cause. And, Bracken told his story a little bit about tonight about military experience and how the bees, I think, have helped him overcome some of the things, from that. And also even first responder experience, because it is first responders and military.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
And so there's something about these bugs in a box, man. I don't know what it is, but they do provide an incredible, I guess, healing effect for so many of us. But anyway, anything else you'd like to maybe talk to Bracken or ask him while you're on tonight, guys, before you head out? Any comments?
Well, I was hoping that when Bracken took all his bees down to California, he was going to, make that little 5-minute detour out of his way and pick up maybe 100 colonies out of my yard. But I didn't see him show up. I was waiting outside.
5-minute detour.
I mean, how far? I mean, is it really that far to go from Utah
to St. Louis,
due east, hit St. Louis, and then go back? I mean, it literally is like a little trip. I mean, it's just
around the corner.
Just around the corner, So
just add a couple thousand miles to the trip. That's all.
If you think about it, 100 miles, 1,000 miles, it's all the same.
See,
it's like the
1
scenic
mile
route.
at a time.
I know.
Yeah. Scenic route.
1 mile at a time.
Well, Bracken, I've been watching. I always watch the videos and stuff like that. Most of them I don't comment. When I watch people's videos, I don't typically comment, but been following along, watching the videos and kind of seeing where you were going with that as far as, what you were thinking, how fast you're going to grow, what you were looking at doing and setting goals. So I like that. I think that we get to places by setting goals. I don't know that we always accomplish every goal we set out to, and that's fine. But you know what? I think that if we don't have a goal or have a mind in place, we can kind of get lost along the way. So I think that having a focal point of sorts is always a good thing. So I'm anxious to see your journey and what that looks like for you moving forward, and seeing how you're able to, obtain your own goals and what that looks like along the way. So we're definitely rooting for you, man.
Thanks. Yeah, I told I don't know, maybe you guys have seen one of my recent videos, but I want to send a semi-load of bees in 5 years. Now those bees don't all have to be mine. I know semi-load's 400 and something, but since I've got into this, I've had 3 or 4 people that have 100 hives each, and they're like, "Can I send my bees with you?" Like, I could feel a no problem next year, but
Yeah.
I'm not, I'm not gonna do that with. I want the majority of them to be mine. Or I told my wife that, she just rolled her eyes.
That's
In 5 years I'm gonna send a semi-load, and she's just like, whatever.
I always like the saying that goes like, they say you can either build with the busy man or babysit a broke one. You have to have goals and aspirations and being busy, right? So I think that's our spouse's job to roll our eyes at some of our crazy ideas and things that we come up with. But it's great to have a good spouse by your side.
Yeah, she's been good. So
that's awesome.
We got to keep you guys in check.
Yeah,
that's right. Melissa, you never roll your eyes, do you?
Never.
She just rolled them. She just rolled them. You're
not supposed to do that.
Wow.
That's awesome. We appreciate you guys coming on tonight. And one question I had, and you probably addressed it. I think somebody may have asked this question. You might have addressed it. I didn't hear it. Do you have to be present on the live to win?
So you don't necessarily have to be present on the live to win, but the thing is we have so many items that are Knobby pickup only.
Okay.
If you're not coming to Knobby, I would advise you to be on the live, so you can, if you want to win one of those items and you want to have it shipped, or you want to pick something else, you can make that decision. Okay. If you're not going to be at, or if you're going to be at Knobby and you win something, then I guess you don't have to, unless your name gets drawn twice, then you won't get that opportunity to maybe choose which item you would prefer.
Yeah. Okay. That answers. I'm sure some people were wondering that, and I think someone even asked it. And I don't know if we flagged it or not, but
yeah,
you did.
It's a little bit of a logistical thing, right? Because
for sure, yeah.
Physically handling any of these items, these are individuals are donating these, so we're just putting them in contact. And again, these items are all being donated, most of them by individuals, right? So we can't really ask them to cover more cost with shipping, especially a big item. You know what I mean? That's why a lot of them are Knobby pickup. So we kind of have to think about that. And
and there's nothing frankly wrong with requiring that. I don't think, but if you got it, it sounds like you guys last year went really well and it went pretty smoothly. I think so. You guys have kind of got it figured out, but
yeah,
we appreciate you guys coming on tonight and participating. I know you're doing a good thing, and Hives for Heroes is a great organization.
Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, appreciate it, Bruce.
Yes, sir. Appreciate y'all. Thanks.
All right, you guys have a good night.
You too.
I'll see you guys.
See you.
That was cool. They're doing some good things there. So I had a couple of questions and just to ask you, Bracken, and then we can roll in to see if we got some comments and questions in the starred stuff. Bracken, if you could give maybe 3 keys to successful beekeeping, what would they be? Or just, it can be 2 or 5, but what would be your biggest keys to being successful?
I got 3.
Okay.
3 things you got to have to be successful at beekeeping. You got to have, oh crap, no, I'm drawing a blank. You had to ask.
Number 1, Bracken, a good memory.
Number 1, remember what your goal 3 things are. Healthy bees, dry bees, and full bees. So your bees have to be healthy, mite free. They have to stay dry, and they have to have food and resources. My mentor told me that. He's a vet too, and bees have done the same thing, kind of for him, helped him. But I remember him telling me that, there's 3 things that I try to focus on. I try to always make sure my bees are healthy. I try to make sure my bees stay dry, and I always make sure my bees have feed. And if I can do those 3 things, he has success.
Okay.
So I try to gear it off of that. That's
let's
3 points.
Let's break it down further. It's for step number 1 to have healthy bees. What do you look for? What do you have to have healthy bees, you think?
Good laying queen, good patterns, good resources being brought in, pollen and honey. A weak hive's not going to bring in the resources that they're going to need. Thriving, they need to thrive. that's what I look for. Full frames, full, just
you can just kind of tell. So if
Yeah.
there's someone who's a beginner or a newbie in the comments here that haven't had bees before, just getting started, when you open that lid, what does it look like to you? There's definitely, I mean, once you've been in a lot of colonies, you can kind of tell. You can pop a lid and say, "Man, there's something wrong here." But what's probably the first thing you notice, or a couple things you notice when you crack that lid for a healthy colony?
If there's bees up on the top bars, like if there's enough bees in there that are kind of covering the top bars, it's usually a pretty good sign that there's a lot of bees in there. Because if there's not, they're usually down further. The top bars are kind of empty.
Yeah.
Sound.
There's kind of a vibrancy about them. They look healthy. They look kind of, lots of times they're calm. They're more calm, and they just seem happy. Not to say that some bees are more spicy than others, but there's just something about them when you cover them. If they're covering up the top bars, if they're just kind of doing their thing and working hard, and like you say, the smells as well. There's certain smells they emit. You can tell healthy or unhealthy sometimes just by how they smell. And so it's pretty interesting. Yeah, that looks healthy. That is a healthy colony, Brian.
Yep. You just know it.
Second topic was our second requirement for a healthy keeping, keys to having good beekeeping skills or a good beekeeping operation. Dry bees. What do you mean by that, and how do you obtain that or accomplish that?
Well, that one, I mean, we haven't this year, but we get a fair amount of snow and stuff, and that was, he wasn't sending his bees to California before he had met me. So keeping them dry, making sure the lids were on, buttoned up during the winter time. I've seen a fair amount, that one might be a little bit more flexy or bendy because, I've seen some boxes that look pretty dang rough, and I've seen people that lose their lids during the winter time and they blow off and their bees just go down and cluster up and they're fine, but I think that kind of just goes along with healthy bees, good equipment, not even good equipment, because let's be real, the bees don't care what the box looks like. The bees don't care if, maybe in our own personal things we think it cares, but I don't think the bees necessarily care if it's got fresh paint on it or cracked,
My OCD tells me different, Bracken.
Well, yeah, see, and I get it.
Yeah, Bracken, my hives would drive Brian crazy, wouldn't they? My hives would drive him nuts. I've got all my hives have all kinds of entrances on them.
But Bruce, that's that's one thing I learned from you. Like I have boxes that I'd have a little crack and a gap on the side, and before I really seen your operation, like I was always trying to make sure there was only one entrance at the front, like square my boxes up nice and neat. Not that that's not bad, but I came to yours and I'm like, whoa. But I don't mean that in a bad way.
No, I understand.
Like these bees are a lot hardier and fun. It's not going to bother them. Now, maybe see, that's dress right dress. That's military status right there. Like that's how your boots on the shelf got to look. Perfect, in line. The bees don't care.
I've got when I set those up, I try and have like the spacing the same in between every one. On my bucket feeders, the sticker is facing forward.
Yeah, that's OCD. That's a problem. You should probably look into that.
Well, so I've got a method. I've got a method to the madness though, because like when my buckets are filled up, I put the handle to the bucket facing back. So I have a little method behind why I do some of the things. And like the ratchet straps, I've got a method to my OCD.
Yeah, I used to be that way a little bit, but now I just don't care anymore.
Yeah.
One thing I think, I just try to think about nature. You got bees in a tree. They may have 3 or 4 entrances into that tree, or they may have one little 1-inch hole. I mean, they just don't. I mean, we minimize the entrances, and we put all kinds of things on our hives, and we try to manage and mitigate the airflow. Just example, this past weekend, I was going through my colonies and I was taking the Formic Pro out. And, one thing I wanted to, you talked about wet bees, Bracken. I had some of my colonies that, it had been kind of cold. and there was some condensation on the top of the lid, on the lid. I'm like, holy cow. And so, that can, result in, water dripping on a cluster of bees and it cold and freeze, it can kill the bees. And so, when I think of wet bees, that's more like what I'm thinking of is that condensation, which happens when it's cold. I tend to find that happen more in shady areas than in the sun. And so I haven't lost a lot of colonies of that, but I'll have it. Sometimes I'll be in a bee yard and almost all the colonies of the bees are perfectly dry. And then you can open up a lid and it's a healthy colony, but the lid is just covered in drops of water. And I'm like, is it dripping on the bees? I don't know. But I know that's why some people utilize insulation at the top of their colonies or ways to kind of soak up some of that water. But cold or wet bees in the wintertime especially can be deadly. And so that is important.
And I think you're right. Now that you say that, that's kind of what it means. The condensation, they get wet, and then we get 20 degrees or 15 degrees.
And it freezes. Yeah.
It's not easy.
Well, those bees are 92 degrees or in their 90s, right? And then that heat rises, and then the top of the hive is 20 degrees. It's just going to condense. It's going to, it's going to condense. And I don't know how much it does that if it's like -2 outside and then it's 90 degrees. I don't know if it just freezes immediately, but if it's kind of that, I don't know, Brian, you guys know better than me because it gets really cold there. But if it's in that range to where it's 28 degrees in the outside and it's 95 degrees in the colony, to me that's more of a, you're right there at that range here. It can turn into water. It can just turn into water and start dripping on the bees, and then if it gets bitter cold, it can create some real problems. So anyway, that's what I and anything like obviously lids off, you can have wet bees, but you can tell, you open a even in the wintertime, a big colony, beautiful, vibrant looking bees, and they're dry, and it's a beautiful thing, even in the wintertime, summertime, whenever. The third thing, what was it, Bracken? It was food. Proper nutrition was how Cayman would say that.
Resources.
So what do you do in that case? What are some of your principles as far as resources for the bees?
Make sure you supplement, make sure that you get syrup back on, or have, depending on how much honey you take, if you're taking a lot of the honey, then you need to make sure you're replacing that because that's their food storage for the winter. If you're not taking their honey, maybe you can leave that on there, but make sure they have a good box of honey, 2 or 3 frames of good feed, at least depending on your winters. I remember a beekeeper here saying that as long as the bees here in Utah had, I think he said 4 frames of solid, good honey, they'll be okay if they can get to
it. Deep frames or medium frames or deep frames? Okay.
Yeah, and I don't know.
So basically almost like a medium box of honey would be, or maybe somewhere. I like to have a medium box minimum on my colonies. But now I think Brian, you run by that same principle, don't you? Basically a medium box per colony of honey.
Yeah. Well, so here I will never harvest anything out of the deep, and then I always leave them a medium as well. So they're heavy. I mean, as the season tapers down, once we hit that solstice and they start tapering back, once we get into the fall and that brood nest is just shrinking, they'll backfill that out. And I mean, there's times I've checked in my deeps and there's 8 frames of just solid capped out honey in there. It's just, I mean, it's packed. Plus I leave them that medium. So around here, when I very first learned, everyone preached you have to have a double deep. But I found that's not true. The colonies manage without it. You don't need a double deep up here. So,
Bracken, what is your preferred overwintering? I mean, I know you're sending bees to California. Do you send them in double deeps or do you send them in deep and mediums? What do you send them in? Double deeps, right?
Yeah, they're in double deeps when they go to California.
10 frame box.
I really like the single brood, or I kind of look at Ian for the examples. He can, obviously they're in a controlled environment, but I don't think he's not the only one that overwinters bees in single deeps. He packs them full. They're not light, and man, his bees are buzzing. But I really want to get, when I do keep them, I would really like to try to figure out the single deep. But at the same time, I don't really care. If I got to overwinter them in a double deep, that's fine with me too. If there's resources up there, I'm not going to take it away from them to put them in a single deep but I do that single brood management, and I like that. I ran that this year. Next year I'm going to try to run that even more. But when I go to ship them to California, after I take the boxes of honey, I put that box back on, I pull a couple frames up, and then they kind of rebuild that double deep nest.
Sure.
And then by the time they go to California, they'll have some time there to kind of gear back up. And by the time they come home, they've, really filled those 2 boxes. So,
yeah, I think to me, double deeps are more forgiving. There's just more space in single deep. That's just kind of, but Brian does manage single deep management, but however, he does have a deep and a medium going through winter. So you do have a second box on there, but during the honey time, single brood chamber management is what you're talking about, basically.
I run like a hybrid though, because I will always have a deep and a medium that are always on each colony. Now, in the springtime, when I'm going to throw my honey supers on, I'll throw typically, 1 or 2. It just kind of depends on the flow. But when I do that, I'll locate my queen, throw her, if she is in that medium that stays on there, I'll throw her down into the deep, and that's where she stays the entire rest of the year.
Yeah.
And then in the fall, once I remove everything, my supers come off in the fall, then I'll pull the queen excluder off so that she has both boxes to play with.
Sure.
So it's kind of like a hybrid. I'm single brood for 5 months, 6 months.
I love double deeps. I have a little bit of everything. Bracken, that I've got single deep management. I've got deep and mediums, a lot of those, and I got double deeps. But I love double deeps because this year, I don't know if it could have been any more perfect. They filled, Bracken saw, and you guys saw if you've watched the video, how many boxes of honey we had on some of those colonies. And some of the ones that we split off in last winter and spring ended up making 2 or 3 boxes of honey or more for me. They were in single deeps. If they were packed out, I would, and the honey was starting, those new splits, I threw a queen excluder on top of that single box and started stacking honey supers, and they did really well. But I like double deeps because, like Bracken will tell you what we do when we pull the honey, we pull the queen excluder off. We take everything above the queen excluder in that June harvest, just take it all. And by then it's all cured, it's ready to go. We just take it all, pull the queen excluder off, put the lid back on. If it's a double deep, typically they've had enough room to store honey in that second deep and on up into the honey supers. But now they're set for the rest of the summer, because they've got down here, the honey flow just cuts off usually in June, like in mid to late June, it kind of cuts off. And so they start eating up into those stores. They've got room to move up and down a little bit there. As long as I was hoping they're not honey bound. Even if they are a little bit honey bound, they can start eating out of that and just eat back up into that second deep a little bit. And then like this year, the honey flow came in, the fall flow, the nectar flow, and I wasn't expecting it to be a good year because it was so dry in August. We had like 1 good rain, I think, and the rest of we've had 2 or 3 months of just drought here. But man, those bees, I was hitting them with OAV. I wasn't really breaking into the colonies much. But when I went back to check the mites, a few weeks ago, they're all just, all the ones in double deeps, particularly even the deep and mediums, but especially double deeps, it seems like all the healthy ones have that perfect, beautiful dome shape. Like they got brood in the middle of the bottom box, pollen on the outside, a little bit of honey on the outside frames, and then a dome just going up into the top box of a little bit of brood in the middle, and then pollen just kind of surrounding it, and then honey at the very top. And it's just a beautiful thing to see. And that is my ideal setup, where you've got that second deep that's got 60 to 80 pounds of honey in it. I mean, it's almost full, maybe a little bit of brood in there. Bottom box has some brood in there, and then they can just utilize that throughout the winter however they want. And one thing that kind of messed me up a little bit, it didn't really mess me up, but it made me have to rethink it a little bit, was like I got some queens from Greg in August, and that's not the best time typically to split here. So I had to kind of break some of those big, beautiful colonies apart. And it worked out okay. Most of them are doing good, but then you have this more management that goes into it. Then if you just have double deeps and you just leave them sitting there and leave them alone, they just kind of take care of themselves. You don't have to really do a whole lot of management really until the spring. And then if you're making honey, you just start stacking honey supers on. If you want to do splits, it's the perfect time to do it. Anyway, that's some great stuff, Bracken. We appreciate that. One thing that I really like, a principle, and when I think of the three, I kind of learned this from Cayman, the three things, and you hit these in your three as well, but a little bit different order maybe. But Cayman Reynolds talks about you need three things, and he just recently did a video on this just a few days ago. But in it, he mentioned that to have healthy bees, you need great queens, which you mentioned, dead mites, which you mentioned, and proper nutrition, which you mentioned. And so those three things, if you have all those three things, you can kind of work it on each of those things as your skill level develops and gets better. If you can get those things mastered a little bit for your area, you can be a successful beekeeper. You can just be a successful beekeeper, because even if you don't have a great honey or nectar flow every year, you can feed in those downtimes and be able to capitalize and maximize honey production when it does come in. And you can have healthy bees if you kind of now those three things are hard to master. Whether you are treatment free and you're trying to breed the mite situation into, get it out into oblivion, trying to get rid of the mites that way, or whether you treat with different products, that's important. All the different things are important. So, what I'd like to do now, we do have a few things starred, a few comments and things. We'll kind of jump through those real quick, Bracken and Brian, and then we'll kind of see what we have here. If anyone has any last second questions or comments they'd like to throw in, or if we're going through these and we don't address a question you put in that we may have missed, just go ahead and throw it back in there in all caps, and we'll try to grab it real quick. But let's see what we come up with first here. Of course, I appreciate, Brian, the super chat from you. Bruce's Bodacious Body Bars. And I tell you what, man, Brian Lee's supposed to be figuring that out. And I guess I'll put my name on it if he actually comes up with a good product. So we'll roll with it.
I want to see that at Lisa's booth at Nabby, because she.
Oh my gosh! Don't give her that challenge. She'll actually do it.
If Lisa, if you are still on here, get in touch with Brian Lee, and I want to see it'll just be like a not for sale kind of item, maybe a future product.
No, you better make sure sell it if you're gonna make me go through that. You better.
Bruce's Bodacious Body Bars.
All right, at Feathers Flowers says she loves you, Bracken. Thanks for the super chat. Appreciate it a lot. Bracken is awesome. We appreciate you coming on tonight, Bracken. Dennis Sherrill, I believe he's right here in Alabama. He says he has a question. He says I might be dumb, but there's not a dumb question. He's wondering, if you live in cold weather, what if you covered your hives with hay to keep it warm? Would that work for your hives? That's not I think some people do that kind of thing. They'll put windbreaks up and blocks, and they'll stack hay up and things like that. But what do you think, Bracken?
I don't think it'll hurt, but I don't know if it's necessary either. It's kind of one of those preferences. If you get a lot of super strong wind, maybe put some hay bales in front of it to block it. There's nothing wrong with that. Natural barriers are. Not going to.
When that north wind's blowing through, it can cut you pretty hard, I think, and especially if the entrances are facing that way, it can be pretty brutal. So it definitely is not a bad idea. Some areas out there, you get up even north of you, where they, like Ian and up in Wyoming and Montana, and they actually keep their bees in a climate controlled in the wintertime. I used to think, how do they do that? What if it, but I guess they keep it at a temperature that keeps them clustered, but it's not real hard on them. I think they have it climate controlled, so they can keep it at that. I'm not sure what the temperature is. Bracken, do you know how cold Ian keeps it? What temperature he keeps them at during the wintertime? Is it like 4 Celsius or something like that? Or
that's 4,
So it's like upper 30s Fahrenheit, something like that. That keeps the bees clustered, but yet it's not super, super cold. So I think it's like they've determined that might be an ideal temperature to keep the bees at, to be able to survive winter. But you can't let it get too hot, or they start getting out of there and flying around and stuff. So it's got to be controlled. But that's really not a bad question at all, Dennis. Like I said, I think Dennis is right here in Alabama, but I do know a lot of people use those windbreaks. As far as like spreading hay over the hives, I don't know if that'd be a great idea. If you're going to do that, probably just utilize, if you want to kind of insulate them, you can put insulation around them in some areas where it gets really cold, I would imagine. But I think hay would be more of a windbreak type of a thing, is what my understanding is. Lisa Grammy Midwife says, life is a journey, not the destination. And that is absolutely true. It is for all of us, regardless of upbringing, regardless of, religion, race, whether we've have things were raised in a good situation or a bad situation. It's a journey for everyone, and we all have our own set of challenges, and it's not the destination. And that is so true. We're all kind of trying to live together here so we can make that ultimate destination in the life beyond. Thanks, Lisa, for the super chat. Let's see. Where do I get one of those sweet hats? All right, Bracken. I think you may have already addressed this.
That hat? I'll have to make some more.
Yeah, I'm about out of hats too. I've got some. I'm out.
Message me on my YouTube channel somewhere, and I'll let you when I get some more. I'll let people know. And
yeah, they are pretty cool. I like them. Appreciate the hat myself. I've got one of the few out there. Bracken's got one of the few, a couple of the few of mine as well. Brian, I don't think you have one of mine, do you? Brian,
No,
you don't have a.
I don't have a hat from any of you.
Well, you haven't. If you come down and participate in the honey harvest, you get a free hat. That's the requirement.
Yeah. Put some skin in the game.
Yeah, that's right.
See.
This is a good question for Bracken. Bracken, where are you staging your pollinators in California? Harris is prepping his this next month.
They're just in Northern California. They're in a holding yard. I see his next question right there. Are they in the holding yard or fields already? They're just in a holding yard for now. They won't go into the orchards till probably end of January. They're in northern parts, so there is a variety of almonds up there that blooms. That bloom a little bit earlier than down there in the central and southern part. So they do see a little bit more bloom before the rest of the state. So they do get them out a little sooner. So yeah, they're in a holding yard right now.
Awesome. Yeah, that's kind of how it works. They and when we would send ours out there, we send ours out, I think, in January, so it was a little bit later. But here is the holding yard. We're still feeding them and stuff, trying to build them up if we're sending them out to California, the people around here. And they start sending trucks out, I think, in January. And then, depending on when they get there, they start putting them out in the orchards pretty quick. But I'm sure they put them in a holding yard initially, and then they start moving them out. But it's got to be quite the operation. One day I'm going to go down there. I'd like to go out there when they're actually doing this. If I send bees out there again, I'll try to. I have to send more than like 50 colonies to make it worth flying out there. But if I could get a significant number on a truck, kind of like what you're talking about, Bracken, like 100 colonies, 200 colonies, it would be worth just flying out there and kind of growing and seeing the bees and exactly how all that works. So it'd be awesome. But it's got to be quite the cool thing. I'm glad, Bracken, you're able to go down there and see kind of what it's all, what it's all about. And it's really great that you have that relationship with Oki. You're right. Yeah. You're kind of got the inside track with that because, he's able to kind of get you introduced to that thing. And if you grow up to where you're all in commercial, where you have several hundred colonies, that could be a real asset for you and for them. We got to remember we're providing these bees for those almond orchards, and they got to have them, And so it's his asset for you, the money you make and the experience, and for them because you're providing a very important service. So it's pretty cool. And we used to send, for those who follow my channel for several years, I sent bees out there, I think, for 3 or 4 years in a row. I was like the caboose on a large train. I mean, I sent like the most I sent, I think, was 52. And we really got in a situation the last year with our broker, and it's a lot of work. Like down here, the way it works is at least the way we did it was, all through December, you're feeding them, you're trying to build them up and put weight on the colonies, make sure they're healthy. Then you have to go through and assess the ones that you can send that are strong enough. Then you have to get them all to a place, get them all on pallets, get them all even sized and consistent. Then you have to put them on a truck, take them to the holding yard. And then generally we load them up in the middle of the night. So if that happens to be a Tuesday night, I got to work on Wednesday. Obviously, I'm kind of worthless the next day at work, And so, and then they come back, same thing happens. The truck arrives whenever it's going to arrive, and we have to be there and ready to unload that truck and get them back out to our locations. And one year it was on a Wednesday night. It was that night, Brian, that we had, what was that? The BTV, what was that guy's name? The inside
Umberto.
Yeah, Umberto was on, and I was out there that night. We were unloading bees that night, and so, but it is pretty cool. But our broker we didn't end up not making anything at all. Matter of fact, we may have even lost money that year because our broker did some things that were in our opinion, a bit dishonest. And so the fact that you have a broker that you trust and that you know, Bracken, that's a huge step in the right direction for you. And if I go again, I'll probably try to go with Tyler Walker if I do it in the future, because he's got some good inside track information and some people that he knows out there, and he's had a good experience with it in the past. So, but I'm not planning on doing that anytime soon. If ever, it was just a lot of work. I feel like if I wanted to make money, I could split all my hives, in March or April if I can get a hold of queens. If I can get Zach to send me enough queens, which Zach, he's on here early. I hope he can send me enough queens this year. I've got a certain order, but I hope he can send me some more. But he's so inundated with orders, it's hard to get them. But I love those queens, and so yeah, I see Bracken's got his picture there of that truck or that trailer. That's awesome. That gives you some pride too, doesn't it, Bracken, to have that big trailer loaded up with all those bees?
That's crazy.
It's just a cool experience.
I got to zoom in on that. Look at that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. It is really cool, and it's addicting for sure. But anyway, maybe in the future I'll do it again. I don't know. But Brian, did you see any more questions that popped through? I think that was pretty much the ones that we had marked. I don't know if anybody else has sent us any questions, right? We missed them if they did. But I know that we have. I'm not sure what our plans are for next week. Next week is. Wait, there's a question. Hold on. Let's just hit that one real quick, and then we'll start to wrap this thing up and talk about what we got coming up. If I have a winter dead out, should I take it apart now to save the frames or just wait until spring? I figure I should open it up and find out why they died, then freeze the comb to kill any bugs. What do y'all think? Brian, what do you think on that?
If so, Uncle Junior 67, if that was up here, I would just leave it go for a little bit, just because, I mean, as far as freezing them, we're going to have months of freezing weather yet. So if I find any of my colonies that are dead outs, it just all depends on the weather. If it's super cold, I just leave them, and then I'll wait for warm weather. I typically wait for the warmer weather just to get them broken apart and get all the dead bees and that cleaned out of it. That way no pests get into it and destroy the comb. But right now up here, it's cold. So I really don't mess with any dead outs at this time of the year.
What do you think, Bracken?
Yeah. I don't know where you're located, but I have left some dead outs before and went back and I had some mold in there. Don't know if that was because I had left them too long or if it got, warm and cold and but I mean, if you're in a place and you're bored and want to clean them out, I don't see why you couldn't clean them out. But I also agree with Brian. Like, I don't think it's gonna make or break really. That's my 2 cents. If you know they're dead, like if they're for sure dead, and they're not a small, because I've done that too. I've looked in some hives that I thought were dead in the winter, and they were just clustered really tight and down low. Depending on where you're at, but they're dead. I think it's up to you.
Yeah, down here it's a little different. We do have some warm weather, and so it can become an issue. But the biggest issue with wax moths, that's the biggest issue, is wax moths, because they can destroy the comb. And this past year, I had some dead outs in August, September. Up until now, I've had a few dead outs, and I left them out there tipped on their end in the bee yard, and a lot of those have been hammered with wax moths. And so, but here we do have some periods of warm weather in the wintertime, so it's probably, if you want to preserve that comb, it's like I see Lisa says she takes them out because they'll get moths even during the winter. Yeah, down here you got to get them cleaned up or else you're going to lose them. And I've lost quite a few frames this year. What?
Jersey this time, like if there's a dead out now, I would think in Jersey, I would think you're okay. Because in these northern states, that's the one thing that we don't have to worry about.
Yeah, for sure.
If I was down in southeast Alabama, like where Bruce is located at, and I had a dead out, well, yeah, I'd probably clean it up, because then you're going to get all the little pests, other bugs, and everything else in it. But up here, that's the one benefit of the cold, is that you have absolutely no bug pests getting into it. Now,
Yeah.
you might have to, typically what I do though, and just to kind of step back one bit, if I do see a dead out that I am not going to clean up, I plug the entrance. That way a mouse or nothing like that will get in there and just wreak havoc and chew stuff up. But that's the only step that I'll take, is just to protect the wax. But
here's another good question that kind of rolls along with that. Bracken, you mentioned that word, the M word, mold. If a honey is capped and gets moldy on the outside, it's still safe for the bees. They will clean it right off. It says it is still safe. That is true. I've had a couple of years in a row. We would pull the honey supers in our summer harvest, and then I would set them out and let the bees clean it up. I didn't have a place under cover to keep those frames for the bees clean it out, and so it was such a pain in the tail to get those frames. I would pull the frames off the trailer, beat the water out of them, and they were still damp with water when we stored them. And so next spring, you pull the frames out, and some of them are mold, not all of them, but some of them are moldy. But you pop those things on a colony, a good strong colony, and within a day or two, like, you can't even tell they have mold on it. They just clean it right up, and then they start putting honey in there. So they handle mold pretty good. I haven't had an issue with that. And if the honey's capped and it gets moldy on the outside, it's still safe. They'll clean it off. I believe that's true. If you got capped honey in there in the wintertime, it shouldn't be a problem. I agree with that. That's just my opinion, but I think it's not a big deal at all. Some people freak out. They want to burn the frames. They want to destroy the frames. But the bees, they are just master cleaners. Like, they're much better than anything else. They can clean stuff up that you could never even imagine they can clean up, and they just do a really good job, and they're very efficient at it because, they're basically pretty clean little boogers, and they like to keep it clean, and they'll keep their environment pretty clean as much as they can. At least a lot of them will. All right. Well, fellas, let's go ahead and start to wind this thing down. I'll kind of, I guess, Brian, why don't we start with you? What do you have going on? I don't know what we're going to do next week is Christmas Eve. We'll talk to Greg. I'm not sure if we'll go on or not. My guess is probably not, because it's Christmas Eve. And the following week, I have a wedding on New Year's Day. My daughter, I know New Year's Eve we're going to be busy with activities and things like that. And so I probably won't be on. We'll let you know if we change our mind and do a short program next Wednesday night or the following one. But for right now, my guess is probably not. Christmas Eve is a pretty sacred night for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Our traditions. And I know some of you may want to sit around and watch the stream team, but I'm not sure if we want to do that. We may just, I don't know, Brian, we'll talk to Greg, but I would not anticipate, unless you see one of us, and we'll post on the Facebook group page if we decide to do it. Otherwise, my guess is we'll probably cancel next week at least. But as far as Brian, as far as what you got going on, I know obviously holidays coming up, then we got New Year's, then we got the expo, but what do you got coming up right here in the near future that you'd like to share with us?
Tomorrow I'm going to go out and I'll probably get some venom therapy. I'm going to check the colonies, check the fondant that's on them, because it'll be 53. So I'll just do that like initial assessment, I guess, after the last cold that we've had. I am going to hit them with an OAV treatment. Tomorrow will be December 18th. So we're right around that solstice time. It'll be 53 degrees, perfect time to hit them with that OAV. So other than that, I've got one other market that I'm doing this Saturday. I normally don't do, any markets this late, but I've got a little bit of extra honey left over, and instead of stockpiling it until, next year, I figure I'm just going to keep selling if I can. I did a market this past weekend, and I kind of felt bad just because I was looking at like a couple of the other vendors that were around me just selling little odds and ends things. And like the one vendor right next to me, I think that the lady said they sold $7 the whole day. And then there I was, honey, you're busy. So, but I'm just selling off some stuff because I'm prepping that I've already spoken to Greg about it. I'm going to end up having 45 supers in my operation. So I'm just getting everything all lined up, frames ordered, all that type of stuff. So I'll probably, check the bees, got the market, and then I'm going to square up any other equipment that I've got to order. And then, that's probably going to be it, because we're going to dip back down again with our temps. We're going to go back cold. I don't think past Friday, I don't think we're going to go above 39 or so for, the extended forecast that was there. So, I think 10 days out, we won't go above 40 again. But that's beekeeping Northeast Ohio. So it just it is. So
I think there's a bit of that everywhere down here. We make fun or we joke about how I will send you guys a picture of a temperature at 60 degrees, but then a week from then it might be 28 degrees. It is such a seesaw down here, and it really makes it challenging. But I think there's a little bit of that everywhere, for sure, where the temperatures do vary. Bracken, what do you have coming up in the next little while? I know obviously you got the same things we do with the holidays and all, but anything going on with the bees? Any plans? What are you doing now with your beekeeping operation?
Nothing really. I'm kind of on coast mode for a little bit, taking a break, but I'm gonna building a shop here, adding on to one of the shops to make my honey house a little bit bigger in a different area. Well, it won't be bigger, but it'll be So I'm doing some building, tore down some old sheds. I'm gonna put up a new one and some construction work. But as far as farm's pretty much tucked away. Bees are gone. I don't know. I just building frames in the garage or in the wood shop, puttering here and there. But
yeah, I know you guys are both trying to get rid of some honey as well, probably selling that honey. And that's what I'm doing a lot right now too, is, man, we've had so many orders, that huge harvest we had, Bracken. I think I've got about 78 or 80 buckets left out of 185. So we've sold a lot of honey. Yeah, we sold a bunch. And just had an order today. A friend of mine said, "Hey, do you have any honey you can get me for gifts, nice gifts for Christmas?" So I told him about the glass mousse jars that I do, and he's going to get 20 of them. So I really enjoy it. A lot of people just think it's tedious. They get tired of bottling up honey, but I do. It seems like work, because it seems like a lot of nights I come home and I spend a lot of the evening bottling up honey, but it's therapeutic to me. I love it. And then I really like that money coming in too. But, it's kind of nice. So
reaping the
just to be honest, the interesting thing this year is that I've really gone through my wax as well. Like, I've processed my wax and I'm just about out of wax. So I actually went and, Rusty Bracken knows Rusty, that we harvest honey together. He actually sold me some of his cappings that have not been processed yet. And I've got them. I actually melted them down this weekend, and I didn't give it enough time before it got kind of cold outside Sunday evening. And then I wasn't able to, it's dark before I get home, so I couldn't pour it. And I don't have power out to my shed out there. So I just unplugged it, and I'm going to try it again this weekend. But hopefully I'll get some enough to kind of last through the rest of the year. But I've just gone through the wax, making candles and selling wax and blocks and things like that. It's been really kind of fun to do that. So that's kind of a new leaf I've uncovered this year. Typically, I have had a lot of wax left over. I haven't had a lot of use for it, but this year, for some reason, it's been a hot item. This coming week, I'm going to go out. I'm thinking about going in and putting some fondant on all my colonies. They do have some weight to them. A lot of them do, but I've got plenty of Hive Alive fondant. I ordered 20 boxes of it. It came on a pallet. So, I've got it. I might as well utilize it. And last year I put it on everything and had the best year ever. So I think I'm going to do it, just as an insurance policy. Most of the colonies have plenty of weight. A few are a little bit light. And so that's kind of my plan. I'm going to try to get that on the colonies. I've got the Formant Pro all off of them now. I just need to start cleaning up the bee yards a little bit, start to really get ready for 2026. I think the mites are pretty good. I may hit them with a few rounds of OAV here over the next few weeks, but they're pretty much, besides putting fondant on them, just kind of keeping a track of their weight and health. I don't have a whole lot really to do with the bees right now, but I'm looking forward to a super exciting 2026 coming in. Just going to be rocking and rolling pretty early. I've got some opportunities coming up with making some splits and things like that, and some different opportunities that should be really exciting for me. So I'm just, every year I get nervous. I think, man, my bees, I'm not going to make any honey. I'm going to have a horrible year. And then the last couple of years have been record years for me. So it's been really cool. But I wanted to kind of close with something here, and the stream team here, we have the hashtag Be the Lighthouse, and I think it probably is based. Greg came up with that. That's kind of the theme for their operation. It's one of the things that they say. It's just to actually hashtag Be the Lighthouse, and that's what we're trying to do. That's what Greg's been trying to do, and we've been trying to do with the stream team. And I think so many of these chats, and I know Bracken, that's what you're trying to do with your channel. But there's a Bible verse I'd like to share, if you're willing to listen here, and Greg, I think you shared it before, but it's a Matthew 5:14-16. It says, "Ye are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hid. Neither do men light a candle and put it under a bushel, but on a candlestick, and it giveth light unto all that are in the house. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven." And whatever your religious views are, that's really what we're all about here. We're trying to just share light, and where there's light, darkness cannot exist. You go in a pitch black room, and you have a tiny little point of light, and you'll be able to see it no matter. It always penetrates darkness. And so whatever we can do, whether it be in beekeeping or just in the world, to shed light and share light with those around us, let us really focus on trying to do that and be a positive influence on the world. And with that, I'd just like to close out tonight by saying, hopefully I can not butcher it up, but we just like to encourage and remind everyone to be the lighthouse and be the change that you'd like to see in the world. We appreciate y'all watching tonight. Thanks for coming on, Bracken. And y'all have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We'll see you later.
See you.